All right, ladies and gentlemen, how is everyone? Do we have anybody here?
We do.
We do. Here's Hero.
All right, audio and everything's coming through fine, Steve.
Cool.
I listened out for that.
It looks like I got everything squared away with the chat stuff. I had to do some stuff today to resync that. There may be some technical difficulties. Hey, Irish, this is gonna be a fun one. There might be some technical difficulties with like screen captures and whatnot because OBS updated. So hopefully it's not going to be anything too major, but as it sits right now, we're in pretty good shape. So before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. Monday, Alex, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a video game day.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure we're going to hear about a new Nintendo by Friday. And then also Monday, I will talk about my experience with the Oculus Quest 2. Since I've got about a week, I'll have about a week and a half with it. And it's been a lot of fun. Also, too, I want to throw this out there. I am looking for a third on-camera host for the show, preferably female.
Surprise announcement.
Surprise announcement, yes. There's a lot of estrogen that is missing here. There's a whole lot of testosterone. So I'd like to get a female that's been in the business for a minute, that is not shy, unfiltered, educated on the ways of retail. And I think that would be a great thing to do. Next Wednesday, it's going to be Tales from Reddit. I've got a Redditor by the name of Proto Rage who's going to be on the show as of right now, telling stories about working at a hotel front desk on the night shift, some other retail things, working in a motorcycle dealership. That's going to be fun. And if everything goes correctly, the following Wednesday, we're letting the ladies take over the show. Alex and I probably won't even be on.
We're just gonna be in chat.
We're just gonna be in chat, monitoring and going from there. I think that'd be great to let them just run it and have at it. So that'd be fun. And without any further ado, our guest this evening, I've known this gentleman since high school. His name is Chris. In some circles, they know him as Hulk. Show us your guns. Go ahead. Welcome to the gun show, ladies and gentlemen. So, Chris and I have a little bit of history in retail. We worked together at Blockbuster Music, which is no longer in existence. I know a lot of people know about Blockbuster Video. Blockbuster Music was something else. We also worked for a red drugstore, which is where I'll tell you things that you probably shouldn't do after you turn in your notice. But
I can tell you something you shouldn't do after turning your notice too.
And then from there, Chris went to the now defunct Eckerd Drugs. So we're going to have a lot of tales from the drug industry. So welcome, Chris. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Steve, I got to tell you, man, I've been, listening to the podcast since you started, and many times I've thought to myself, it would be great if these DMs and corporate scumbags that we talk about all the time were listening in. This would be the show that I would really want them to hear. The DMs, the RVPs, the corporate guys who make life so miserable for so many human beings. This would be the one I'd want them to kind of drop in on.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to have one of them on and let them, tell us how they forgot where they came from and explain why they're assholes to everybody. That'd be great. That'd be a lot of fun. And with the group of people we have that watches, that'd pretty much eat everybody alive. So
yeah, I don't think they would survive very long.
No. The group of folks that we have, that'd be rough. They might want to quit their job after that,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, I mean, and that's a large part of what we try to do is you know, kind of get at them. You know, I'm still hoping to have more hourly associates on, because I mean, they really get the brunt of it. You know, we can talk about good managers and bad managers all day long, but those folks are the ones that have to deal with the good managers and the bad managers. So, but I understand, you know, it's a little, it's sketchy for some people. I mean, they might not want to, you know, dip their toe in the pool quite yet until they're like way wronged, you know, and they're ready to go. So,
well, you guys are doing good work though.
we try.
This needed to happen. This podcast needed to happen. And I know there's others out there, you know, that are out there doing kind of what you're doing too. But this is, you know, this is where it starts. It starts at the ground level.
Exactly. And, you know, we try, you know, that's why I like having people on. I like people telling their own stories. I mean, I've talked about this ad nauseum that, you know, I'll read people, you know, people's stuff, but, you know, it's kind of hard to verify. You know, somebody could feed me a line of shit or whatnot, but, you know, if I've got somebody on telling their own gig, well, hey, if they lie, that's on them. It's not on me. So, you know, I don't want to, I don't want to get, you know, drugged through on all that. But, you know, it's something that, you know, I toyed with the idea of doing something like this about 5-6 years ago. Started a blog called the Retail Blogs, but, you know, I was still a retail manager and I just didn't have time. It started out okay, and it kind of, you know, fell by the wayside. And then thanks to COVID, I found myself in a position where I was like, I ain't got nothing better to do. So what the hell? Yeah. So
the two favorite shows that I've had so far, the first one was the one you did about the RVP coming to town.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, just the whole show, I'm nodding my head because, and by the way, the trick you pulled in the hobby store about switching the stuff or the merchandising around a little bit to cover that was brilliant. That was absolutely.
It just shows how much they don't pay attention.
And then the other of my favorite shows was when you had the two ladies on. I think I can't remember their names off the top
Mad
of my
Dog
head,
and Iron Maiden.
Show too. Yes. How could I forget Iron?
I know.
How could I forget that? But yes, but that was just another excellent.
Nice shirt, by the way.
I do it. Oh yeah. I was just telling Alex before we came on the air, I had a chance to go see them in Atlanta a few years ago, but couldn't get off work, and I hate myself for it because they're not going to go out to me.
But hey, you've got to see the Cult, so there's that.
Absolutely. Well, in Atlanta, as a matter of fact, was the last time I saw them. I went to the
Tabernacle.
What's the Satanic Church?
The Tabernacle.
The concert venue. Yeah. Yeah, you can't see that and not think of that Mickey Rourke movie where Robert De Niro was the devil. You can't go in that place.
I've seen some great shows there. I saw Paul Stanley solo there. Yeah. I saw him there. Okay. That was awesome. It's a great venue. So, but anyway,
I like the Bird's Eye. Oh yeah.
No. Oh no. You're good. So let's talk a little bit first about Blockbuster music. So for you guys who don't know, Blockbuster decided, hey, we're going to open up a music store. And here in South Carolina, where it was located, Chris, I don't know if you remember, so we were located on Haywood Road, and within walking distance was the mall that had a Blockbuster music in there as well. And it was like,
we were literally 30 feet from our competition, and it was
and it was just insane. It was like, why do you even do that? We had probably one of the most weaselly district managers I've ever met in my life. And which I don't know. I will say we didn't at the time we were there. No Limit Records. You remember, Chris? No Limit Records. There was a new release every week from Master P's camp, and people would just show up, and it was all garbage. I mean, it was terrible, and but our prices were higher than everybody else's, and we sold books. You remember that shit? We had that whole book section in the back.
I do.
And it was like,
do you remember when those guys, the records were coming out as they showed up on WCW television. You remember that? And they got into the pro wrestling thing was going on at the same time they're releasing all those records.
Where we got all the soundtracks.
Yes.
Now the cool thing about working there, hey Maiden, was the fact that you were working in, the music business basically, and you could get a hold of like your different reps from like Sony and BMI and all these other different record companies, and you could ask for like free copies. And it's cool because Chris, I still have somewhere in a box my promo copy of Kiss Carnival of Souls, and on the front of it embossed in gold says "not for resale" promo copy. So that was cool shit. And but to speak,
was that the first time that we saw Tommy Thayer dressed as Ace Frehley, and we were like, it's not Ace Frehley.
No, that was well after that. Well after that.
Was it after?
Yeah, Carnival of Souls was their last non-makeup record, and it was right. It was right before the reunion. So.
Okay, I've got Tommy Thayer on the brain. Okay,
that's sad. But speaking of wrestling, so we sold tickets, and we were a Ticketmaster venue. Now, Chris.
I was about to say a Blockbuster video or
Blockbuster music. Yes, we were a Ticketmaster vendor.
Alex,
what was Blockbuster music? I've only known of going to Blockbuster for renting games.
Steve refers to Blockbuster music as Blockbuster music. I refer to that period in my life as how I learned to hate Ticketmaster.
Okay.
Alex, Blockbuster music literally was like, if you imagine FYE without like all the pop culture stuff, and it was just selling music. That's what Blockbuster Music was a chain of stores that was seriously, it was a music store. Sold CDs, cassettes, the whole 9 yards. And did you just sell the music or rent? No, we didn't rent it. But Ticketmaster. Now, Chris, I don't know if you ever had this experience. You had these guys that were ticket scalpers, and they would come in first thing in the morning, like on big concert ticket release days. And I'll never forget, there was Elton John was coming to Charlotte, and that was a really big deal. But for some reason, nobody showed up to Blockbuster that day to buy tickets. But this one dude, he gets there before the store opens. I let him in, and he could tell you exactly what to punch into the computer to get exactly what seats he wanted. And I sat here with this guy for 30 minutes doing all these tickets, right? So I get this guy all these tickets, and then he pays, and then he hands me $200 cash. Like, thanks. I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. But were you there? You didn't get to participate in the Nitro thing, did you?
No. I don't know if you remember, I was working 2 jobs back
then.
I had a daytime gig, and then I would come and work for you
at night.
Basically, So
Alex, you'll love this. So Ticketmaster, when you figure out how to use the computer, you've got your on sale dates and you got your on sale times. So there's a certain time where the tickets kick in, and you can actually punch them in and get them to customers. So this was a Monday night Nitro in Charlotte. All right. And so me and some of the boys, we decided we want tickets. And if you did it fast enough, and I was able to pull this off, I think there were 5 or 6 of us that went. I was able to get the first 6 tickets out of the batch as we were rolling live. And those 6 tickets happened to be on the aisleway where the wrestlers walked down. So nice. I printed out those tickets, put them over to the side, and then went through and sold to everybody or whatnot. And then after the tickets sale was over and everybody left, we pulled our money to get together and paid for them. But that Nitro was the first Nitro that Bret Hart was on.
After the Montreal Screwjob?
Well, no, he showed up, I believe, to Starrcade first. And
okay. No, yeah, because he did show up to WCW first, and that's what resulted in the Montreal Screwjob.
No. Montreal Screwjob is why he came to WCW. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so but anyway, he showed up at the pay-per-view for Sting versus Hogan, and then there was a Monday Night Nitro in Charlotte a few weeks later, and that was Bret Hart's first Nitro debut, and that was crazy, absolutely crazy. But yeah, I didn't really have a lot of weird shit happen at Blockbuster. Did you, Chris?
Just a lot of theft.
Oh yeah,
A lot of people doing the dine and dash.
especially on the Master P records.
Oh Lord. And you felt bad you felt bad because you had to keep the shit locked up behind the
Yeah.
behind the counter, but it was walking out on us. I mean, it was walking out on us in droves.
I do remember the most painful thing I ever had to go through there was a midnight release for Garth Brooks Sevens. And they had us cater and barbecue for a midnight release sale for a fucking Garth Brooks record. And then Garth Brooks was coming to Charlotte. And this is the longest line I've ever seen anywhere in my life, to be honest with you. So tickets go on sale for Garth Brooks to come to Charlotte. And the line was practically down Haywood Road of people standing in line to buy these tickets. And so they come through and and you couldn't go to the bathroom. I mean, you were stuck at the Ticketmaster machine this entire time. If somebody wanted to buy something, they were just shit out of luck. They couldn't get in anyway because the line of Garth Brooks and cowboy hats everywhere. But anyway, so it went through and the first show sold out. And then I get a phone call and they're like, don't shut it down yet. He's trying to decide if he's going to do another show. Then all of a sudden they announce a second show. So we go through. Okay. So he wound up announcing 3 consecutive shows in Charlotte. And so we did this ticket thing. And listen, Amy, but that was the largest pile of money I've ever had sitting in front of me because Ticketmaster was all cash. You couldn't pay with cards. And so after these Garth Brooks tickets went on sale, I had to go back to my pissed little office. You remember that? It was like a closet in the back of the store. Do you remember that? How big the office was?
It wasn't that big.
So,
it wasn't that.
And it was like a cartoon carrying like plastic bags full of money, and I looked like Scarface back there with this mountain of cash. And it was like,
you remember when the Joker burned?
The who? You're cutting out. What?
Joker. Okay. In the Batman movie where the Joker was sitting on the pile of money and he burned
yes.
it.
That was pretty much it.
Wow.
That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
And that was
introduce a little.
Woo.
Not about money, about sending a message.
Yeah. Sending a message. There are a whole hell of a lot of Garth Brooks fans in Greenville. That's for damn sure. And then
Steve, what was the album where he was like another person? People on a wig.
Chris Gaines.
And he was
Chris Gaines, yeah. That was about damn near career suicide. So but yeah, so Blockbuster, theft, ticket sales, that was pretty much it. Now we won't get into the juicy let's get into the juicy stuff now.
Okay.
So from there.
So then Batman and Robin make our way to the Red Pharmacy store.
That is correct. Now.
Yes.
So I experienced a lot of weird things at the Red Pharmacy store. That is the first place I've ever worked where I had an employee lock somebody in at closing. And I don't know if you remember, my store was in a pretty sketchy part of town, and we were like the only store around that we closed at 7 and everybody else was open late. So I'm sitting at home and I get this phone call from the cops, or no, from the alarm company, saying the police have been dispatched and whatnot. And so I fly to the store, and there's this poor dude with his hands up on the other side of the door, cops, guns drawn, because my assistant manager didn't check the store and locked this dude in when he left. And I'm like, oh my God. And the dude was like apologetic and whatnot, but he was just thankful he didn't get shot. And in that part of town.
So was he taking a squirt? What was he doing?
He was in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And actually, on one of our first episodes when we were talking about crazy stuff, when I was talking about the old woman who exploded the bathroom, And there,
Oh,
that was at that store. That was at the Red drugstore. So, so the Red drugstore,
okay.
we had a district manager, and we will call him Jack the Blumpkin King.
Okay, but you're forgetting the best part of that
What?
story. Is do you remember who he replaced? Do you remember the guy who
Yes.
actually hired
Yes.
us? And he was stooping half the pharmacists and half the female managers. Remember that?
Who? V was?
But yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh
Yeah. There was some scandalous shit that went down in this place. Let me tell you.
Absolutely.
So,
and then V leaves, and we get the scumbag. Of the
yeah.
century.
So Jack the Blumpkin King was he portrayed himself to be devout Jewish faith, right? And
Yes.
and here's the funny thing is he had about as much business being a DM as I have, running the government. I mean, just useless. And so he would come in and he would make these ridiculous demands, and the guy and when you shook his hands were soft. You know what that means? He had no calluses. He never worked. All right. So
is that what
that's what well, after we found out what he was doing later, I don't think that's what that meant at all. But anyway, so this dude, my run there was not all that great because the leadership was terrible. Payroll was awful. I mean, I was in a bad part of town. There was a lot of theft. We'd have people break into the pharmacy and shit. But anyway, so this guy would come in just giving people hell all the time. And I wound up doing something that I thought was funny. I had a book about witchcraft called How to Ride a Silver Broomstick. And
sounds like a deal.
I know, right? And so I decided to bring it to work. And I left it sitting on my desk in my office. So every time...
Was this during your trench coat days?
No, trench coat hadn't made it yet. That was later. Okay. That was after my dark period. Okay. But
it would have been a nice visual.
He would come in, and every time he'd come in, we'd go to the office or whatnot, and he'd look and he'd see that, and he'd just turn like white. It was like garlic to a vampire. He was just terrified. He's like, "What is this?" I'm like, "I read it when I'm at lunch." "Why would you read something like that?" I'm like, "'Cause I can. It's my lunch break." Whatever.
Yeah, that's definitely wild.
Yeah, so that would scare him off. But, before I let Chris get into some of his escapades, here's some life lessons for you folks. I want to talk about when I turned in my notice and the awful things that I did prior to my exit that I would not advise anybody to do.
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear this.
So, mind you, I was about 25 years old. So I was like I've said, when you're a young manager, you don't exactly think straight and whatnot. So the first thing I did was we had to order our ad merchandise like 4 to 6 weeks out. So you placed an order for all your ad merchandise and you didn't get it for another 6 weeks. Well, I decided to order enough cases of paper towels and toilet paper that it would have completely flooded and filled the entire back room. Probably.
Oh, you was ahead of the time.
Oh, yes. Boy, that'd be something else. So I did that. And then I decided I had a pretty good staff of people and they worked pretty hard. And this was one of those rare occasions where you could actually go into a computer system and give them a raise right there on the spot without any permission. So I gave every single employee in that building $1 an hour raise. No reviews, no nothing. Just hit the button and go, right? And I did all this right at the halfway part of my second week of my notice, so nobody would catch it.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last thing I did, my last day, Alex, I know you're familiar with scan guns, order guns, Telzons.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
yeah,
I had a little bit of computer programming experience, and I knew how to get to the root drive, and I erased every single fucking one of them. rendered them useless, could not be used.
Hey, at least you gave the employees $1 an hour raise.
Well, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Let me tell you how much of
an
an asshole this DM was. All right, so I took over the store. All right, coming out of training, and I mean, I'd only been in the store 3 or 4 weeks, and they had like these different kind of weird things, and so because of how their bonus structure worked at the time, I got the full bonus for the manager that was before me. Right? It's just how CVS, or it's just how the Red Store worked. Sorry, I'll go back and edit that. That's just how it worked. And I'll never forget, I got called to the district manager's office, and he sits me down, and, you know, rather than saying, hey, lucky you get this, he was just a douche and was like, you don't deserve this. This isn't your money. So don't feel good about getting this. And I'm like, I'm not the one who writes the damn policy. Why are you being a douchebag? He's probably mad because he couldn't pocket it. But he's too busy pocketing something else. So, Chris, tell us about your experience at the Red Store.
Came in and they started me off as a salaried assistant manager. And I don't know if you remember at the time, there were basically 2 kinds of assistant managers there. There were salaried assistants who were going to eventually, whose career path was to get a store.
Yep.
And there was hourly assistants whose career path was to be an hourly assistant.
Right.
And I came in and I went through the training process, and he put me, the DM that you're talking about, there was just an instant dislike. It was an immediate, you know, there was never an argument. There was never, you know, friction, but he didn't like me. I thought he was weird. So I became kind of the traveling salesman. You know, I would go to troubled stores and help out for 3 months. And then when that situation was resolved, I'd go to another store for 3 months. And, you know, all the while I'm kind of, you know, when I'd see him sporadically, hey, you know, any idea for me getting a store? He was putting me off, you know, tell me what I wanted to hear. Oh, yeah, something's coming up. And kind of unlucky for him, which we didn't know at the time. I wish because I average didn't know. And they were coming with Steve. Did it end up being? Was it 24 stores in 6-7 years? I mean, they came strong.
Eckerd?
No, Walgreens.
Oh,
Walgreens was coming, but we didn't know.
Yeah, they came in swinging. Yeah.
Okay. So Walgreens is coming, and there was some friction there between me and the DM on some personal issues that I probably shouldn't get into.
Damn it. Yeah,
I heard that.
Because that'd be must-see TV. Jesus Christ. Oh.
Do you want me to say it out loud?
Yeah.
Really? I mean,
yeah.
Okay. I banged his wife. Okay, that's there you go. Okay. There was a Christmas party.
Respect.
Drinks.
Respect.
Okay. Anyway, so there's that. Aside from the play, how was the play, Mrs. Lincoln? So anyway, long story short, Walgreens is coming, but we don't know it. I get a phone call out of the blue one day from the Eckerd DM. Wants to talk to me. I go, I meet him. Super nice guy, straight shooter. He tells me Walgreens is coming. I need store managers because I've got people leaving for Walgreens. All my good people are leaving. I need shoes to fill these stores. And so I said, what am I looking at? And he promised me I'd come in as a salaried assistant. And he promised me if I wasn't a complete fuck up and didn't, throw anything in the ocean, that I would have my own store in a year. And as it turned out, it took 6 months. So automatically I'm dealing with a DM who's not a scumbag.
That's always a bonus.
Yeah. But I can tell you this, though, about the Red Store, that we're not going to, the ordering mechanism they had for inventory was light years ahead of what I had just walked into. And I didn't know that. You talk about ordering something and you get it a month later. Eckerd never knew what they had in the stockroom, and they never knew what they had at the warehouse.
Just
Never. They never got that right.
just to let you know, to make you feel a little bit better about that, we're in the year 2021, the year of our Lord, and Hobby Lobby still to this day has order books that the department managers have to write their order quantities in, and then give them to a bookkeeper who has to key them in all day long.
Steve, that is archaic.
Yep.
That's crazy. I don't know what their shrink numbers are, but that's crazy.
Yeah, I still don't think they have an on-hand inventory. Green sheet madness. That is correct. Yeah, Chris, it's green bar printer paper, to give you an idea.
Yes.
So it's green bar
yes.
printer paper and a green bar binder with 4 weeks of orders. In each department, you go line by line, writing down what you want. And then a combination of managers and the bookkeeper sits in the office on order day after they do the money, and all day long, just keying those numbers in.
That's archaic. I don't know how you stay afloat doing that.
Well, they do. I mean, for the longest time, for refunds, you literally, there were these refunds, and I don't remember what the other one was, overrides maybe, but these pink and purple carbon copy pads that you had to carry with yourself. So because you didn't have an itemized receipt, because they didn't have a database. So every time somebody needed a refund, manager had to go up to the register and turn a key and fill out this stupid little form and put it in the register.
Now, was that for loss prevention purposes, or was that actually how you kept track of the?
I don't know how. I don't think they keep track of the inventory. It's a dollar based inventory. So basically, they go by how many trucks they've had shipped in, what was the cost of merchandise on those trucks, and then they inventory you, and they back out all the sales for that time period, and then they take those 2 numbers, and there's your shrink, basically.
Okay.
But, yeah.
You talked a second ago about how they stuck you in kind of a sketch store. I didn't know until I got my own store that the sketch stores are actually, if you look at your payment, you go, because the rent, I didn't know that until I got my own store, and I was put in a sketch store, and suddenly I'm
so you're saying you cut out there for a second. So you were profitable is what you were saying.
Yeah. Even though the store was sketch, like you were talking about earlier.
Yep.
If you look at that P&L statement, that rent, that's your big one. That's your big one on that. Yeah. And bro, I'm telling you, those sketch stores, if you're in a residential neighborhood, you're making money.
Yeah. That's kind of, believe it or not, that's how Dollar Tree is. I mean, Dollar Tree doesn't, they don't have a lot of profit, as far as you're only making like a quarter on a dollar, but they make it up in volume, and when you get in areas like that are kind of sketch, where the income's low, those businesses do better because there's a perception that you get more for your money at a dollar store. You don't.
Right.
Which is crazy. Hero asked a good question. When you were working at the sketch store for Eckerd's, did they set your shrink goal higher?
Yes. Back then, the tobacco products were not behind the counter.
Yep.
They were actually on an aisle in the middle of the store. No one's watching it. So I had Black and Milds, just anything a 14-year-old kid would smoke to look cool walking out of my door every 5 seconds.
Oh, not to mention the fact that prophylactics were never locked up back then either.
Who has ever walked into a drugstore and bought the 500 count of Advil? And I know people who walk in and steal them, but I don't know anyone who's ever walked in and bought one.
It's true. And you make a good point, because back then when we were doing this, not to date ourselves, there was so much more of a lack of security, condoms, KY
Razors.
jelly, razors, cigarettes, all this stuff. It wasn't locked down.
Yep.
And you go into a Dollar General
Yep.
in some areas now, and they got little ding doors on just the deodorant because it's so bad. And
Right.
you know, and the irony that all the drugstores up until, I mean, really, I think in the past 5 to 8 years, I mean, you're working in a drugstore that's promoting health, and they all sold smokes.
Yep.
I
We
mean,
did.
I mean, that made no sense. I mean, it was great because if you were a smoker and you didn't have to go to a gas station, you just go buy a pack of cigarettes, you know. But the fact that you're working at a place where you got pharmacists and people doing all this stuff, promoting health, you're selling cigarettes. It makes no sense whatsoever.
Yep.
Cough syrup.
Tell you, Steve, you had a show a few weeks ago, it might be a couple months ago now, where you talked about that P&L statement.
Yep.
And bro, I'm telling you, the first time that I saw my employees were not employees, they were controllable expense.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they were listed. I mean, a little bit of my soul died that day because I had truly gotten in bed with an evil corporation. These people work for me. They bust their ass for me. They're unloading trucks in the heat, and they're not people. They're controllable expense number.
Exactly. And that's the sad part. And that's why I think that there's a lot of Karens and Kyles out there that they don't really understand how it works. They go into their favorite store and nobody's there to wait on them hand and foot, and they want to yell at somebody. They're yelling at the wrong people. I mean,
absolutely.
Look what Best Buy just did.
Cut the hours.
Yep. Yeah. And laid off thousands of people. And now they're in the news complaining they can't hire anybody. Assholes, you just let go of half your staff. I mean, you're mad because you can't hire a bunch of part-time people and pay them shit. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And you're right.
Steve?
Yep.
For a second, I couldn't hear you.
All right.
Yeah, when I got to Eckerd and they gave me a store and it was in the pretty sketch part of the county, I was lucky. I was surrounded by residential on all sides. What that really was, it gave me enough payroll to unload my trucks and run my cash registers.
Yep.
And I know people in retail who would have killed for that scenario.
Mm-hmm.
But I was lucky enough that he put me in a sketch store, which when, you drive up the first time, you're like, oh, no. A year later, I'm bonusing.
Yeah. I mean,
because of that P&L statement. Yeah.
What part of town were you in at Eckerd's?
Okay. My first store was, do you know where Riverside High School is in Greenville?
A little.
Okay. I was basically a stone's throw from Riverside High School, and I was surrounded by residential on 3 sides, and I had the high school a mile down the road.
Right.
So I was in, gosh, man, you want to make money in pharmacy retail, your pharmacy's got to be booming, and your pharmacy's not going to be booming if you're in a commercial part of town.
No.
And I was not. So I was booming, and I had no complaints until the DM I told you who hired me, who was a straight up guy. Yeah. He went to Walgreens.
Oh, wow.
We got a new DM, and he was the worse than the man we were talking about a minute ago, worse than him.
Wow.
He actually is the one who he ran me out. I lasted 5 years, but I was so burnt out by the time that I left, Steve. It was, but it was because of him. I'll just briefly. The first thing that this guy did when he came in, he did 2 things right off the bat. First thing he did was he cut everybody's payroll across the board. Didn't matter if you were high volume store, low volume store, he cut everyone's payroll. Second thing he did was he eliminated all of the salaried assistants.
Oh, wow.
Every assistant became hourly, which from this business, that's like taking a billboard up off the interstate and saying, hey, store manager, you're about to live your life in your store.
That is correct. And a lot of businesses are moving towards that right now.
Well, they did it back then, and bro, I'm telling you, it killed morale. It absolutely, across the district. Now no one has the payroll to unload their trucks and keep their registers running. I mean, that's essentially what he did. And I'm sure it made a ton of money. I don't know if it's as nice as the Sears office in Chicago, but it made somebody some money.
Oh, yeah. Irish Connection asks, what was worse, big box or red pharma? Were the customers / managers much different? You know, in my experience, it really isn't about the business, to be honest with you. It's about the leadership that's in place. You know, you could work at, a dollar store and have great leadership and it be a decent job. Customers are going to be bad all the way across the board. I would say in the pharmacy business, you get much more heated complaints from people, and some of them are valid because you're dealing with pharmacists who are tasked with providing them a health service, and in essence are responsible for the well-being of their patients that are there, getting stuff. And this is another thing too. You want to talk about people not having a life and not working. No work-life balance. Back then, our pharmacists, Chris, you remember this, they would work open to close every single day. They would get 30 minutes for lunch. They weren't allowed to leave the building. Yeah. And yeah, they made good money, but there were several that if you talk to them and you figure out how many hours they were working, they weren't making much more than your hourly assistant managers, because they were literally there 14 hours a day and they were there sick.
See, the biggest blow-ups that I ever had with customers would be on the snow days when the store had to be open, but the pharmacists didn't come.
Yep.
So the people within walking distance wanted their medicine, but you and I can't go get it.
Yeah, because that was with the Red store. What I learned was, sure, there's a pharmacy there, but those are two different divisions. The payroll for the store itself is separate than the payroll for the pharmacy. The pharmacy had a totally different district manager than the stores did.
Yes.
And they operated under a whole different set of rules. Chris is 100% correct.
Yep.
If the weather was bad, they didn't have to come. Or holidays.
Right.
There were holidays where the store was open, but the pharmacies were closed. And it would cause chaos because there was no communication and people didn't understand, what they were working and what they weren't. And, Hero asked, do you get customers complaining about prices of a prescription? I will say, you got to remember, this is like, for me, I gauge everything in around 1996 because I know that's when the KISS reunion happened. So this was 94, 95, 96, 97 range. Okay. Things were different back then. It wasn't a runaway freight train of let's raise the prices on everything. It really wasn't. It was a different economic state back then. Whereas now, back then, they would just, if you told them what the price was, they just took it and went on. Now it's like they want to haggle you over everything. But back then there were much less arguments about price versus, and this is scary. The amount of times you'd have customers come up and you find out that you've got a pharmacist that's worked, 4 days in a row, open to close, can barely stand, and they fucked up and they put the wrong pill in somebody's bottle. Yes. That happens.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely.
And it's finally, it's been a while, but they finally started regulating and making sure pharmacists had coverage and they were able to take breaks. And that's why you see a lot of pharmacists leave or back then leave places like that to go to work for grocery store pharmacies, because the grocery store pharmacies were treating their pharmacists better.
They were. Absolutely.
You know, and they were getting some sort of work-life balance. But man, my pharmacist for the red place, man, I mean, we're talking, they're out there trying to give people medicine because they're sick as a dog, and they cannot miss work because there's no floating pharmacist available, and they're in there sick as a dog and have no business being there.
Right.
I mean, I've had a pharmacist pass out. I mean, it's crazy. And even though you got two different DMs, neither one of them will take accountability for anything that goes wrong back there.
Right.
I mean,
that's right.
It was cool though, because they had this big book back there, how all the chemical compounds of everything, how to make it. Literally, these books had like how to make cocaine and heroin and shit in it. Like, no joke. No joke. They had, they did. It was crazy. And then, you know, when the pharmacies, when you closed at night, they had like this big cage that went around it, you know, because people break in to steal the C2s. And I always wonder, because, you know, Chris, I'm sure Eckerd's the same way. You'd get into like C2s from couriers.
Yes.
You know, they'd come with a hand truck with some totes and mess. And I was like, man, if somebody like stuck them up or robbed them, and man, it's just a street value. I mean, because they're bringing in like bottles of morphine and all sorts of crazy shit. I mean, it was wild.
Did I ever tell you about the time I got robbed?
No.
Okay. This is when I was working at the Red store. I was working. You remember we had regular hour stores, midnight stores, and 24-hour stores. You remember that?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the stores I'm working at as a salaried assistant is the 24-hour store. And I'm working the late shift. Guy comes in with a shotgun, herds my cashier, me, and the pharmacist back to the pharmacy. And to let us know he meant business, he fired off a round into the ceiling. Yeah. So, yeah. You might have heard a sound that was like this. Yeah, that was the air around my butthole when he shot that thing.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyway, he wanted Klonopin, which I don't know if you know, that's a heavy duty anxiety drug.
Yep.
So he got all of our Klonopin, took off, and they caught him the next day. But the point is, dude, that pharmacy, the chaos can come from that.
Well, and I've knock on wood, I've never been robbed, ever. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I almost got robbed at Blockbuster. Actually, there was a car that was parked out there, and something just felt sketchy about it. It was right around Christmas time, and I called the police, and the police came, and they talked to the people in the car. Next thing you know, they were getting cuffed and taken off, and the cop came to the door and knocked on and says, "You can come on out." And I'm like, "So what the hell is that?" Well, they had guns in the car, and the car was stolen. And so off to jail they went. And the cop was like, "Be glad you called." And that's really all he said, but that was enough. But that's the closest I've ever came. I've had friends that, in the dollar store business too. I've got one who's been robbed and, at gunpoint, had a gun put in her, up next to her head. And then they had an incident where they had somebody go crazy in the store not too long ago and was stabbing people with pins and all. I mean, there's some crazy people out there. But where you're really screwed is, fun fact, the store managers don't have the keys to the pharmacy cage.
They don't.
Yeah. And so if the pharmacy closes an hour before you do, and or
never opens for the
right,
for the bad weather,
and somebody comes in packing heat and they want every bit of Xanaxes back there, you can't get in. And you're dealing with an addict who's really pissed off, and you got a good chance of becoming target practice.
Yep.
That's
and fidgety.
Yeah, and that's how scary it is. Because back there behind that cage, a lot of the thieves you have come in, that's what they want. They want to hop that counter and just, pack a basket full of every C2 they can find and either, OD on it or sell it on the street. And those stores really put their managers in a really compromising position, because in some cases you were a sitting duck because you couldn't, even if you wanted to. I mean, you got somebody there putting a gun to your head saying, I need in the pharmacy. You can't get them in.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nope.
dude.
Nope. And they don't. Yeah.
Iron Maiden says, how different is it now that they have a quick clinic in the building? Is the store manager still responsible for issues that come up? I don't know. I don't know anybody that's still in the drugstore business.
I don't know. Everyone I know got out. So I don't know.
It's now that the drugstore business was one of those that, they worked their managers into the ground. You were,
Yeah.
I mean, the hours they expected you to work. And did your trucks come in totes there?
They did.
I hate totes. I really, do you know, I still have in my possession a CVS tote?
No.
I really do.
Why do you have that?
I don't even know how that came to be, but I have one of those totes in my storage unit that I've had for 20 years. I don't even know how.
Steve,
I don't even know how I got it.
Can I tell you a funny Eckerd story?
Please do.
This was one of the big blow-ups that I had with the DM shortly before my exit. Do you remember when you would get on a random truck a huge cardboard box full of, I think it was Mars Brothers, but whatever, the candy bars you would get, and you didn't order it. It wasn't even close to Halloween. You just got it.
Was it a shipper?
Okay. No, just I mean, somebody at the warehouse got a deal, so every store got one of these things.
Oh wow!
You know what I'm talking about? Okay, so what am I going to do with all this? It's just chocolate, and what am I going to do with this? It's planogrammed items, but this is more than I would get in 6 months, and you know what I'm saying? It was just a ton.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, and I have just no idea what I'm going to do with it. I hate having perishable stuff in my stockroom because it goes out of date and it's just a loss. So that night I got home and I had a fight with my girlfriend. I don't even remember what it was over. But so that kind of got my wheels turning a little bit in my head. So the next morning I get to work and I've got this idea now. Call my cashier over. I said, I want you to go to the back. I want you to grab every clip strip you can get a hold of. I set it on the tampon aisle, and I clip stripped that son of a bitch every 3 with candy bars that I did not want. I had chocolate going all up and down that tampon aisle, Steve. It was absolutely you wouldn't have known it was the tampon aisle. You would have thought it was a chocolate aisle.
That's great.
Dude, that sounds.
I labeled every bit of it. So 69-cent candy bars over. Steve, I sold that fucker out in a month.
Well, dude, no offense to anybody, but you clip stripped them on the tampon aisle.
Yes. So my DM comes in for a visit. This is the guy, me and him, we don't like each other. He's walking the aisle and he sees it. Now, I'm just about a week away from being completely sold out at this point. So he's furious. You can't do this. This is sexist. And my retort was, well, does anybody else who didn't do this still have a ton of chocolate in their stockroom?
Ding,
okay.
ding, ding.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the point is, it wasn't his idea.
Yep.
It was my idea. And I've never thought of it as sexist. I thought it was a pretty good idea, and I ended up sold it. It didn't get tossed out of the trash can in the back and cost me money. But it was that kind of stuff, Steve, where like you really weren't managing. You were just kind of the corporate, what's the word I'm saying for? The lapdog.
Prostitute.
For the corporate idea.
Prostitute.
How just like you talked about merchandising a few months ago. I would move my merchandise around and I would move my facings so my stockroom was empty, because my philosophy was there is no cash register in the stockroom.
Amen.
If it's perishable, it's got to be out here where a human being can at least see it and see the price. And the tampon thing got me written up.
Really?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was that.
Oh
bad.
my God, that's
But
awful.
I stick to my guns, and that every time I would go to someone's store and help with inventory, they had the big giant box of chocolate still sitting there going out of date, and mine was sold.
Well, that's
Yeah, I think the dude just got pissed at you for outsmarting him. To be
Yep.
honest,
exactly.
Alex, this guy, he was just don't think, just do. You know, I mean, corporate's telling me to tell you what to do, and that's what you're going to do, and I don't need you to think, because that's not what I'm paying you for.
Oh, here's a red store story for you that flipped out Plumpkin King. So, like I said, he tried to pretend that he was overtly religious or whatnot, and it was Halloween, and so we got to build displays.
There were no religious items in his bedroom.
I'm sure there might have been some beads.
top drawer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I built this Halloween display. They told us build these displays, spice the place up for the holiday. And I've got a picture somewhere here of it. But anyway, it was around the time that Scream had came out. And so I built this like dummy, basically. Like it looked like the character from Scream. It looked like a Ghostface. And so I had Ghostface hanging from the ceiling. And in one hand, Ghostface had a knife. And in the other hand, I'd taken like a rubber mask, like a head, and like shoved plastic in it and whatnot to make it look like, it was filled out. And so you had this thing hanging from the ceiling with a knife in one hand and a head in the other, and all these cobwebs and shit hanging around it. Well, he was not pleased. And then it was funny. I got like 4 or 5 complaints to corporate from parents who were like, that's not appropriate for my children to see. And I'm like, well, they told me the decorate is Halloween. And old Jack, whew, he was not pleased. And I'll never forget, because he didn't see it until after the complaints came in. All right. So he come in and he looked at me. He goes, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, I like Halloween. And you fast forward a few years, and I got married on Halloween. So I mean, there's no shocker there. But yeah, I mean, that was some lunacy that went on. Now, here's something I wanted to ask you. This shows how much times have changed. Now, I remember you and a friend of ours, y'all worked at Sears, right? Yes. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I remember having a conversation with you back then. You had went to college, and didn't you get a degree in teaching?
I did.
If I'm not mistaken, I think we had a conversation years ago, like around that time, where you guys decided to stay in retail because they were going to pay you more than it was to be a teacher.
To be a salaried assistant manager, I was absolutely going to make more money. Yes.
Man, now how times have changed. If you knew then what you knew now.
Well, hey, it's
but hey, look, you outlived Sears.
Dude, I'm the death knell for these companies.
Well, I don't know. I mean, well, I'm telling you, like when I did the episode about going to the Sears corporate office, I mean, you walk in that place, you understand why they went under. It was.
Oh, dude, it's like Biltmore North. It's the Biltmore House of the.
That was insane. And did you ever get to go there?
No, I saw pictures, but I never made the journey to Illinois.
That was when they still had the Sears Tower. After the Hoffman Estates came later. After that, but yeah, I don't. But I would think that because was Eckerd your last retail run? You got out of it completely after this.
It was. I was so burned. He burned that DM in the corporate. Just it was set up to fail. Steve, the thing that ran me off, they moved me to a brand spanking new store. I was across the street from a super Walmart with no left turn arrow to get into my parking lot. Excuse me. I had no left turn arrow to get in my parking lot. I'm in a commercial part of town, across from a super Walmart and my rent was $38,000 a month.
Good Lord.
I was dead. I was dead in the water. I was absolutely dead in the water because of that P&L sheet. 38 grand a month before I paid me, pharmacist, anybody, trucks. 38 grand a month.
Yeah, there was no way you were going to sink.
There was no
Well,
way.
you know,
So you can only spend so many hours there, and I was burnt. It was time to go.
the drugstore industry reminds me a lot of office supply business, and here's why. Because the comparisons for me, I worked for Office Depot. I got recruited from Office Depot to go to Office Max, and I loved Office Max. At the time, Office Max was great, but and I'll never forget this. I had to go to a corporate shindig, and in Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is where Office Max's corporate office was at the time. And it was funny. The CEO of the company's name was Michael Fuhrer, so they called him Der Fuhrer. And fun story about this. The parking lot was a huge parking lot, right? And if you were a smoker, you had to walk like 100 yards outside of the fence to smoke. I mean, it was just ridiculous distance. And the reason being was Der Fuhrer had a Jag convertible parked, and somebody flipped a cigarette in his seat. So it was like,
Did Der Fuhrer smoke them backwards like Nazis in movies? You know, did they do those things?
I don't know. But the arrogance of some of these people is crazy, because we went to his office. I mean, he talked to us. Our first day there, we went actually into his office, and he, it was a small group of us. He shook our hands, and he was a fairly nice guy. He was a little unhinged. I've heard stories. But in his office, he had 2 baseball caps. One was an Office Depot baseball cap, and one was a company nobody had really heard of, Staples. And they both had arrows through them, pointed to the wall. Fast forward to now, Staples is pretty much running the show. Office Max got bought by Office Depot, and they combined, and they started getting rid of the Office Max brand, and they're just going down the shitter. So the comparison I look at is, you got to remember we had Eckerd's, Rite Aid, and I think Rite Aid is just about done. I don't think there's hardly any of those.
Yeah.
You got CVS, and like you said, Walgreens came on strong. It's a 2-horse race right now. It's Walgreens and CVS, and it just shows you, the amount of money that goes behind these companies, that they can completely take out an industry and monopolize it. Because I mean, like I said, Staples is pretty much they rule the roost now in office supplies, and I really feel like CVS is going to wind up being the one to run the drugstore deal. I think CVS is so entrenched with the federal government. There's no way they're going to fail. Walgreens is.
So how are these corporate people with their degrees and all this experience that they have running this corporation, who in the world signs off on a store with 38 grand a month due every month in rent?
Well, dumb ones for one thing, but there again, that comes from arrogance as well. I mean, it's at that point in time, they probably thought that, nobody was going. The best example really is Kmart and Walmart. Basically, Sam Walton went to Kmart when Kmart was on top of the world, and went directly to them and said, "We're coming across the street and we're going to take you out," and did. You get like, that's probably what happened to Eckerd's. Eckerd's was going great, and they didn't think about the competition all that much, and felt like they at that time, Eckerd had been around as a name longer than CVS, because CVS, bought out Revco. That's what we were used to here, was Revco. And the CVS, picked them up. I think they just felt like, and for the most part, Eckerd stores were bigger, any of the big Dollar Trees you see out there, you can thank Eckerd for those, because those are the buildings that Dollar Tree goes into. are these Eckards that have shut down. And I think at the point in time, they probably thought, oh, 38,000. Yeah, that's a little high, but we'll do okay. They didn't have any foresight, to what the industry was going to be. So it's just a shame. And, I don't miss the drugstore business. Iron Maiden says that she hears through the grapevine that Walgreens is having distribution issues. All the Walgreens in her area have almost no merchandise. I would say that that's probably a pretty bad sign, but we're not getting the whole truth on supply chain issues, and you're seeing a lot of bare stores everywhere. I'll be honest with you. You go into a Best Buy, they're pretty bare. You go into some of these drugstores, they're pretty bare. There was that Evergreen ship that got like jackknifed in the canal, caused some serious shipping delays. And I don't think we're being told the truth on what the actual shipping delays from China have been since COVID started. And it's affecting everything. Yeah. I mean, it's affecting everything from video game consoles, consumer electronics, paper goods. It's a thing. So it's but I do think CVS has got more backing behind them. CVS has got that government handshake, whereas Walgreens does not. So I don't see them. CVS. It will not surprise me to see CVS pull a WWE buys out WCW move, and all of a sudden one day we find out that CVS is buying Walgreens out. So
it'd be a big merger. They'd have to get federal approval for that.
As long as there's little guys still around, they probably won't have to. Gas shortage. All right, so you're in North Carolina. Gas shortage, not as much here, to be honest with you. I don't. But then again, the gas shortage was manufactured. People just went crazy. People went out and did a gas run, and you're watching the news. You got people trying to fill plastic bags full of gas. I mean, the fact that you have to, the EPA has to come out and say don't put gas in plastic bags tells you there's a problem. I mean, it's and some of those people are, boy. You got any good shoplifter stories, Chris?
I do. Well, no, I mean, I chased a few. I'll tell you this: if you and your friend drive up to the store and then come into the store and act like you don't know each other, we're on to you. We know what you're doing.
Pretty much.
Yeah. But no, I chased a few, but it's just, at the end of the day, you don't know what kind of weapon they might have on you. And my life wasn't worth, the 100 count of Advil.
And we've talked about that before on the show. I mean, you bring up a beautiful point. I do not know what is wrong with these people that chase people out that are stealing. I mean, because you might chase 30 people. It only takes one of those people to turn around and shoot you in the face. Yeah. And there's nothing in any of these stores that's worth it. I mean, at all.
My perspective changed greatly when I had the guy put the shotgun, basically in my belly I told you earlier about getting robbed. Dad just kind of, you know what? Hey, I'm going home safe every night. This is, they would replace me tomorrow if I did something stupid and got killed.
And that's the sad part, because you're a controllable expense as well.
Yeah. I'm on the P&L.
Yeah, you're on the P&L sheet under that payroll line, and if payroll gets too tight and you're making too much, they'll manufacture a reason to get rid of you to hire somebody cheaper. That's what they do.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I got out. So yeah, I got out, and it was good for my sanity that I did.
Do you like what you're doing now?
I do. I do. I don't take it home with me, and that's the thing, because I don't want to take it home with me. I want to go to work and then home be separate.
And I think that's the thing. That's the worst part about retail, especially when you're a manager.
Especially managers. Absolutely.
You can't leave it at the store when you go home. You're always going to get.
Did you ever have a thing? Did you ever have a scenario where you were, let's say it was Christmas Eve, and you had condensed it to the point where, okay, going home tonight, and then all Christmas Day you're thinking about, okay, what's next? Valentine's. Okay, so I got to, and you just didn't enjoy
every
Christmas
year.
because you were thinking about
Every year for about 25 years, and I'll tell you, I mean, I used to be a cheerful individual many decades ago. I used to like Christmas, but I've said before, Hobby Lobby, retail in general, but Hobby Lobby especially, ruined Christmas for me. When it is June, when it's terrible. June, and it's 99,000 degrees outside, and you get a phone call that you got a 52-foot semi at your back door that's loaded with Christmas trees, and then you have to go unload it, and then you're told, oh, by the way, you have all those Christmas trees, assembled and put together by the middle of July, and you've got Christmas in your face from June to February, and you only get a few months reprieve. Shit. Hate it.
Yeah.
And then glitter. Glitter is I've said it before, is the herpes of the craft world. I mean, you get glitter on you, it's over. Done.
The easiest way to tell if someone has ever been a retail store manager, the easiest way to tell.
Let's hear
it. Is if they absolutely despise Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas. That's how you know.
Yep.
That's how you
big facts.
That is the litmus test.
That meme is true. That song.
They
spam it all the time, and there are so much better Christmas songs out there. But Mariah Carey, boy, I can't imagine what her royalties are on that mess. So, all right, boys and girls, we're at an hour 12. Once again, I want to thank Chris for being on. We'll have him on again in the future.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate
it was definitely nice to meet you, Chris.
You too,
yeah, well, yeah, you gotta be nice, Alex, because he could bench press you with one hand, and me too, probably. He could probably bench press both of us. But once again, like I said, I'm looking for a third host on camera. I'm looking for a female with a retail background. If you guys know anybody, message us and let us know. I think it'd be nice to have that, on the show and having that perspective weekly. And, just got to be halfway intelligent, work in the business for a while, know what you're talking about, and good times. So, once again, like I said, Monday is probably going to be video games. Wednesday is going to be Proto Rage from Reddit, talking about crazy stories from the hotel industry and whatnot. That's going to be fun. And then, as I've talked to the ladies today, the Warzone after next, as long as everybody is on the same page, the ladies are going to run the show. Yes, Lo, video games, you say. I got an Oculus Quest 2. I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to get into E3 stuff because we'll probably hear about the new Nintendo in the next 48 hours. So,
I've heard that rumor. I've heard that rumor, and
it's already showing up in store POS systems. Pictures.
Oh, all righty, gentlemen. So, I got to get going. Nice meeting you.
All righty, everybody. Y'all have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.